Hey everybody, what's going on? Hellmite here, bringing you another video from Grab the Lantern today. I am not actually going to be talking about Nunu today. I have been able to play him a couple of times, but I wanted to get a few more games under my belt before I decide to give my first few impressions. And instead, I wanted to be talking about Riot's first preseason development update. So we're already starting to get some details on what exactly will be changing in preseason 9 and taking a look at how the game might change. Now, RiotScruffy made a post over on the League of Legends boards. I will have that link down in the description below, but suffice to say, we've gotten our first few looks. First of all, Riot are trying to improve the laning phase. Specifically, they're addressing player concerns around towers and tower health. Yes, that's finally getting looked at. Concerns are finally being addressed in that regard. So, first and foremost, outer turrets will now start the game with a barricade that adds small 5 health bars on top of the turret's main health. Every time you kill a piece of the barricade, it rewards local players some gold. Around the 10-minute mark, the barricades go away, which removes the extra defense and the opportunity for gold rewards. Now, what this means is that you have a slightly longer laning phase than before because it takes a lot more time to actually kill these towers, but it also rewards early pushing or strong laners because if you're able to kill even just barricades, even if you don't kill the whole tower, you get a lot of bonus gold going to yourself or potentially to your team if they help you kill some of these barricades. So that's going to be really interesting. I think that does what Riot want to do, which is create stronger towers, but also don't make them so strong that turtling is the only thing that matters anymore. Sure, if your tower survives, if you're the guy that doesn't give up first tower blood, but you lost all of your barricades, that's still a lot of gold going over to the enemy team, regardless of the fact that you still have your tower. So I think that's a very novel and creative solution, and I'm looking forward to this. I think that it's going to do a lot to help the laning phase stay relatively lengthy, but at the same time not cause things to snowball out of control immediately, and not cause these sort of 3-minute tower takes that can happen in some games. Riot will also be slightly buffing damage on turrets. They say they're exploring it, so it may not happen, but it might be a possibility that comes through as well. So towers will be hitting slightly harder, so you have less of a chance to make those early level tower dives work out in your favor, as that extra damage is the difference between you surviving a tower dive or you dying in the tower dive. So should be interesting. This also helps address Riot's whole deal of trying to make comebacks more achievable and more satisfying. So, because it means that there are fewer early first tower takes, which then means that, okay, so I did gank and we double killed their bottom lane, but we weren't able to kill their tower, which means that they got to come back, they got to spend more time farming. Our bottom lane couldn't instantly kill the tower, then rotate top, kill their tower, rotate mid, etc., and snowball up a huge gold lead. Because the towers are increased in strength, that won't happen as easily as before, so it should help losing teams come back a little harder. Riot will also be buffing bounties to scale off more than just kills. So the idea being that, okay, sure, there's an 11-0 Ahri on the enemy team, but if we're able to kill her, we're going to get huge benefits in terms of gold, and that will really help things swing back in our favor. So that should help. Riot have also said they're testing reductions in global tower gold, which I think would be interesting. I do like the fact that global tower gold sort of rewards teams that are staying objective focused, but at the same time, it is a huge form of snowballing because, like I said, you kill bottom tower, you rotate top, you kill top tower, you rotate mid, you kill mid tower, and now you've got this huge gold lead from potentially not even fighting the enemy team. So we'll see how that plays out. Riot have also said that they're going to buff certain things to help decided games resolve faster. So melee and cannon minion health now scales up much higher in the mid to late game. So this is designed to allow games to end more naturally. So that way teams who are behind don't just kind of drag it out forever because they have great wave clear. Instead, because minion health will scale higher, it's harder to just kind of endlessly wave clear, and the team with the advantage will be able to successfully shove more minions into the tower, get some damage down, and keep sieging. So I do like that. I think that'll be a good change because no one likes those games where it's like, okay, there's no chance for us to come back, but because we have a Xerath, we can wave clear forever, and it's going to take them. They have to get Baron, they have to get Elder Dragon before they can end the game. So still high on that. Also, we got a couple more details about how the rune upgrades will work. Riot have been mentioning for a long time that they've been wanting to change runes so that you will be able to choose some kind of stat bonus at the beginning of the game as opposed to entirely being dependent on the specific runes you pick. Now, I'm not necessarily a big fan of this change. I like the current rune system, but we'll see how this ends up playing out. Currently, they have a couple of different options if you're able to take somewhere between 2 and 3 choices. But so far, tests on both, they've been saying, are promising. So you will be able to choose from offense, attack damage, ability power, attack speed, or cooldown reduction. And defensively, you can pick armor, magic resist, scaling health, and health regen. Now, if you're able to pick just 2 of these options, that gives you the ability to go really hard and aggressive and take like AD and cooldown reduction if you're an assassin or just want more damage. Or you can even spec heavily into defense with armor and scaling health just to try and survive a tough lane, for example. So it will give a little bit more flexibility to champions, especially in the early game. Again, I'm not a big fan of these changes, but we'll have to see how they actually play out before I really come to terms with it. Now, I've been pretty high on most of these changes, but this is the one that I'm not so high about. Riot have said they're moving the minion spawn and monster spawn times by about 30 to 40 seconds earlier. What this means is that minions will now be spawning minions will reach lane roughly around the 50-second to 1-minute mark, and jungle monsters will be spawning around the same time. So now, Riot's excuse for this is that they say they want to leave room for invades and interesting strategies, but 95% of games, players end up waiting around for 30 seconds. We think streamlining this phase lets you get to the fun quicker. Now, I disagree with this. I think that the removal of the early game, the pre-game, before minions spawn, is a huge mistake. And this is for a couple of reasons. First and foremost, I think that there is value in having an extended time before minions spawn. For even as much as the mundane reason as, wow, this guy didn't connect, let's hope he reconnects before minions spawn or as minions spawn. And it gives you kind of at least a minute and a half buffer room of, I was in the bathroom for too long, I was getting water, it took me a while to load in, I didn't realize we were in game because I was alt-tabbed. All these kinds of things, that minute and a half of buffer really helps, and it means that, okay, sure, they still showed up to lane a little bit late, but they're not entirely screwed by missing out an entire wave or an entire 2 waves, or didn't get a leash because we had to go to lane, that sort of a thing. The other thing I disagree with Riot is that I think that moving the time earlier doesn't leave room for invades, because if minions are going to reach lane by about a minute, let's say, and you load in, that means you only have 1 minute, probably less than that, because you'll need at least a couple of seconds to either recall or to walk towards your lane. That means that you only have probably, I would say, 45 seconds to do anything in terms of invasion. Now, this doesn't leave any room for a delayed invasion or for a sort of 2-part invasion where you fent on one side of the jungle and then send your team in on the other side of the jungle after they rotate. It leaves no room for that at all because you have so little time. You have to immediately rush into the enemy jungle, and if they're rushing to meet you, well, then your invasion doesn't work because they're going to see you coming, and they'll be able to back away or get wards down or whatever they need to do to counter the invasion. You don't have the opportunity to kind of make a late invasion happen. You don't have opportunity to sneak around their jungle, get some wards down, then pull out. You don't have the time for it anymore. So, yes, in 95% of games, players don't do that. But first of all, there is the implication in the pro scene, where invasions are a larger part of the professional scene. And I think that with this change, there would be absolutely no early aggression, because why would you bother? You don't have time. If you go for an invasion and mess up and someone dies, you're only going to screw yourself harder because you don't have the option of getting back to lane in time for that first wave. You're guaranteed to miss a couple of minions. The other thing is, sure, 95% of the time, players end up waiting around, but in the other 5% of games, it is an option. And even in those 95% of games, you have to be paying attention in the early game because you can get these invasions going. So it's one of those things that I'm not a big fan of. I like the rest of this, don't get me wrong. I really like the tower buffs. I like the fact that they're changing bounties to try and make comebacks more achievable. I like most of these changes. This is the one change that I'm super skeptical about and that I would want Riot to revert if at all possible. Now, I haven't played with it yet. Presumably, they're still testing it, but this is the one change that I'm not a big fan of. However, the rest of this, like I said, I think is going to be really interesting. Towers being buffed is going to be really cool. The ability to come back from games thanks to bigger bounties and reduced tower global gold, I think will help extend games further. And even just having a very protected laning phase will extend games later. And the later games go, the more likely the chances are for comeback, just because respawn timers get longer, builds start getting finished, which really levels out the sort of advantages you had from global gold and that sort of thing. So I really do like most of these changes. So I think it's going to be interesting. I'm hoping Riot follow this up with a lot more posts talking about preseason. So in this far in advance, it means that we have plenty of time to sort of have a say in what's going on in preseason and kind of talk about, hey, what do we want to have happen in preseason, guys? We should talk about this. What do we want to see from Riot? What do we think about their ideas that they're currently giving us? So I will be quite interested and hope that they keep doing these kinds of posts. Anyways, that's going to be it for me today, guys. Let me know what you guys are thinking of any of these changes down in the comment section below. Would love to hear your thoughts, especially about the spawn timer. I know that's the one that I'm most hung up on, but I would love to hear your thoughts. If you think it's a great idea, sure. All I do is alt-tab in the early game anyways because nothing ever happens, right? Let me know that down in the comment section below. If you enjoyed the video today, go ahead and leave a like. And if you really enjoy the video, go ahead and consider subscribing. Upload a video every Monday, Friday, and on patch days as well. And if you're looking for Grab the Lantern content, you can check out my blog, link down in the description. I upload an article just about each and every single day for your enjoyment. Once again, thank you guys so very much for watching. I do appreciate it. And I'll talk to you all later.